Hey guys, how you doing? Let me just check the sound. 1 minute. Trust, still, excellent. Good. Right, that looks all right. Okay, let me just get the chat up. Testing 1, 2, 3. How's it sounding? Testing 1, 2, 3. How's it sound? That sounds fine to me. All right. Okay. So, Prestige, day off, so caught this one. Can hear you loud and clear. Thank you, my friend. Good to see you. I'm not drinking wine. That is just elderflower. Elderflower water, something like that. With some ice and some lime, you know. Dragon Shadow, an early stream. What a great way to kill time at work. Thank you. Yeah, it is. Oh, the light is a bit funny out there. Let's turn this on here. There we go. Yeah, we're out tomorrow. So usually I stream on Tuesday evenings. And I thought today might be a bit of a change. Mix it up a little bit. And talk about a bit of a status update. We've just I've just put something on Kickstarter and on the Facebook, and have a look at a couple of things. I thought it might be quite fun to have a look at some of the early development notes that I wrote. At the end of last year, and also have a look at the optional tables at the back of the book, because I haven't really spoken about those, and it might just be fun to have a look at how to use them, and you know, talk about whether I use them or not, which I currently don't. So I want to kind of refresh myself as well as talk about them, and so that's the plan for today. No playing. Just largely because I did some last time, and I plan to start a proper campaign probably in a week or two. So maybe next week or the week after. We'll just have to see. There are a few things going on at home at the moment. Just some minor things with my mother-in-law. So we've been slightly tied up with that. Had to pop down to Gloucester, and might have to pop down to Gloucester next week. But usual family stuff, all the fun of the fair. So how is everybody? James, hi all. I'll probably just listen, but did want to at least say that I'm listening. Thank you, James. And James, I'd like to also thank you for your contributions on the Facebook page, answering stuff for people, getting in there pretty quick, and 99% you're spot on. So that's very useful. I very much appreciate it. In fact, there's a few people that do that. Todd, Jeff, you guys, more people, and that's very handy. Especially if I've got my head down doing some work or designing, getting stuff ready. There's quite a bit of that at the moment. Hey Brian, how you doing? Good to see you. And how did the hammock camping go, Brian? That was you, wasn't it? You off on some hammocks somewhere? No problem, James says. If I see something I think I can answer correctly, I will. Glad to help others where I can. And the community definitely appreciates it, my friend. Oh. Who was it that went off on a... Not me. Who was it then that did that? Went on the hammock camping. It may have been... Oh, no. It was Steve. Steve did, yeah. Steve. I think it was Steve, yeah. Steve goes off on his motorbike, I think, as well. Is anybody else doing any summer holiday stuff at the moment? Because, yeah, we went camping, as you know, and it rained every bloody day, which is about typical. Okay. Good. I'm sure that that'll come up there. So what I think I'll do first is have a look at the optional tables. I've got the book here. Got a little bit of blurb. These were... I'm away in Scotland mid-September. Ah, nice. Nice. I've been to Scotland a couple of times, Inverness, Sutherland up in the Highlands. Yeah, I like it. I like it there. It's not perhaps as hot as I'd like it. That's the truth of it. Optional tables. Several useful tables follow that were stretch goals in the original campaign. So these were the stretch goals. Whenever I do any stretch goals on a campaign, I try to add content to the game. And this is largely because you see some campaigns where they add physical additional stuff. Now, I might add stuff like bookmarks in the future because they're not exactly heavy. But if you do add something physical, it generally adds to the postage costs, and the printing costs can also bankrupt the project. So I personally think that any campaign support, I'm happy to see just additional content added in. I think that makes perfect sense. And you know, some physical stuff, if it's just paper print, if it's just like a small amount of paper, I think that makes sense. So these were the optional tables. So each stretch goal was an optional table. Now, as it happens, I did, and someone's pointed this out, that there aren't as many optional tables here as were listed in the campaign, and that's because there are a couple that became integrated into the main book, and that was, for example, the traps tables. They became part of the game, and I didn't feel that they had a place in the optional tables section, so I pretty much left that as a natural part of the game. But most of them are in this optional tables section. These pose options for particular situations, such as encountering a dead end or discovering a secret compartment in a chest. They are not compulsory to the core rules, but are official optional tables that can add more narrative fun and loot. So they may be good in a sense for the lairs. If you go into a lair and you're feeling that you're not getting enough loot out of it, you could add some of this. You go to one of these tables, and I'll pick out the one that's probably good for that. Throwing one or two in per level would work nicely. Each table has a short description of when you might be used in game. These are guidelines, but feel free to use them as you want. It's also recommended that these tables are for levels 1 to 5, but they can be used at deeper levels. The rare items tables were also created through collaboration stream with supporters of the project on the 4th of July 2023 at our YouTube channel. Yes. And there's some thanks there for the suggestions that came in, which was actually a lot of fun. Had a great time doing that. So let's just, I think what we'll do is we'll just go through them. Maybe have a look at a couple of the options and a couple of examples. Maybe we'll roll some die. So, Adventurer Infected table can be applied when you fight an undead. At the end of the combat, to increase difficulty, you can choose to roll on this table. So, we've got a table here that I would potentially apply to. Maybe if you're ahead of the levels and you're going down to level 3, or maybe some in the Sunken Swamps where you've got some undead there. So that might be really applicable there. Let's have a look. 6. You feel slightly hot after the encounter and begin to sweat. Rest up and eat something. Lose 2 HP and 1 ration. Okay. Let's go for a slightly higher number, please, dice. 10. Your body feels itchy after the encounter, but this soon subsides with no ill effects. There you go. Some are good, most are bad. So there are some benefits from doing that. We've got Adventurer Near Death table. Can be applied when you are 1 or 2 HP. Not during combat though. This table is very much about recovery rather than death and gives you more of a fighting chance when up against it. So Adventurer Near Death. 9. Neverzator looks upon you with pity. You may spend 1 Neverzator FP to heal 2 HP. You can spend as many favour points as you have. So there you go. Very useful. Let's carry on here. Cave in event. So can be applied when there are signs of damage to the room and you just entered. This will be in the room description. Encounter anything in the room space first and then roll for the cave in. Roll 2d6. 8. The ceiling above you moans and a thick timber snaps to burst through, catching you slightly. Lose 2 HP. So it just kind of grazes you as it falls. And then, hey Jeff, how you doing? Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Okay, so just having another look at the optional tables, Jeff, and then I wanted to have a little talk about some of the design. Early design, some of the things we went through, because I've had a few questions about how to design a game, and I thought that I would just show you some of the notes to give people some ideas if they're looking back on looking at this game as an example, something that they are interested in. I thought the cave-in event and then the cave-in rescue table. You find a dead-end room and there has been no creature encountered in space. Encounter the room, so you can do a cave-in rescue. 6. The support strut has toppled over, bringing some stone down. You think you spot some clothing, but it turns out to be nothing. 9. You uncover a person who is long dead. You search them and find some Ilios petals and Cathoto spines in a pouch. So it can add something. So these optional tables, as I was saying earlier on, Jeff, could be useful for when you're in the lairs. Closet spaces. So this is when you've got like a 2x2 space on the map next to the room, and it's completely surrounded. It's not leading anywhere. It's like a void. You can put in a 2x2 room. 12. I like that rescue table. Good balance between risk and reward. Thank you, Jeff. You open the door and are surprised to see 2 people bound and gagged. You free them and they escape. Liberate 2 prisoners. Creature drinks a potion. When an enemy you're fighting has lost half their HP, they miss a round of combat as they drink the potion. Only humanoid enemies can drink potions. Roll 2d6 for this table. Again, Fights are too easy. Give the creature an edge. Add another element to the narrative of your story. You could highlight it as an event or text or like a moment in your story. 7. Your enemy whips out a vial and drinks the blue liquid. It gains +1 to damage for this combat. So he rolled 2. The combat drinks a potion and breathes fire at you. You duck back, but take 2d6 damage. There you go. Right, let's have another look here. Creature near death. There's a bit more information here. Human creature has been reduced to 0 HP. David Rees, good to see you. Good day, everyone. I like the concept of enemies drinking potions. It's more realistic to combat. Exactly. That's one of these things that I was trying to do with these optional tables. The thing was, you can just throw them in. If they became part of the fabric of the core rules, I just felt like it might be too much to remember as well. I've always had that opinion. And to be honest, I haven't thought to use them in my games yet. But I think I will probably incorporate them. Just throw one in. When we do another layers, or start a campaign. Maybe I'll do a layers first. Maybe I'll do Infernal Caves first before we do another one. Let's test this one out here. 5. I believe in Grokada. They hand you a symbol of the god as they die. Add Grokada's symbol quest. Next time you are able to make an offering to Grokada, your upper symbol, receive 3 FP and complete the quest. So, there's definite benefits to that one. Creature retreat table. Can be applied when a creature is facing has only 1 or 2 health points and is their turn. At that point, the enemy performs an action that can either benefit it or hinder it, and even result in its death. Okay, so we do I'm rolling 6s a lot. 7. The creature tries to run, but you shove it and gain an extra attack. The fight continues. It might be something like the creature is terrified, flinching in pain, appearing panicked, allowing you to strike it dead. So it can just end the combat like that. The creature ducks, rolls and escapes your reach. As they do, another creature of the same type enters the room. Fight both. There you go. So it could turn the tables. Is that readable? Is that readable? I hope it is. Dead End event table. You roll a dead end corridor that is 5 squares or longer and have the encounter at the end of the passage. It is not a room and you do not always have to roll on this table. Roll 2d6. 9. You notice the corridor slopes down and a pool of clear water has formed at the end. There are some fish in it. Gain 1 ration. It's almost as if someone was like keeping some fish there. There's a small... at the end of the passage is a figure leaning against the wall. Roll on the level patrol table and face them. Just check I've got this. Just trying to get my... Yes. There we go. Tom, how are you doing? Hello from Florida. Thank you for making this. Question: can you talk about the decision to go colour with print and the price considerations? Few beginning publications are colour. Good to see you, Tom. Has it been a while? That is a good question. So, it's funny you should say that. When I first conceived of it, colour really didn't enter my mind. It wasn't anything that I thought would be key to the game. And I I had perceived it to be black and white. In a sense, like an old school role-play format. But then I hadn't really thought about how I was going to print the book. I knew that it would be this style of format because I've printed quite a few books like this. But I didn't know whether... I hadn't actually thought about it being colour. And the cost isn't that different, to be honest. But as I then got into the development of the game, what became apparent was having some colour reference would be really handy. So we've got the colours on the spine, on the pages here, on the edge, which has a nice kind of reference. And then the yellow fast became my preferred colour to divide the text. So then as the game was developing, it became apparent that colour could have an important role. And because there were so many voices and so many people telling me about what they perceived and how they interpreted the tables and the book, I kind of thought, this is going to add... It's going to give more access for people, you know. It's going to it's going to facilitate a better play experience. And I played around with greys, so I've used some grey. I've found the yellow has been very effective, and the tones for colourblind people are clear. You can see a different tone between obviously the white and the yellow. So one being slightly darker. Colours are super important. It's one of the points in the Drop Pod review you asked for. Unrelated to this, I won't say any more than that. Yes. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Tom. I'm glad I went with colour as well. And it just feels like a better product, doesn't it, as well, when you see a colour. And it's not really that much more expensive to have things printed in colour, to be honest. It's just the quality of the paper, the quality of the bind, and everything was a sort of quite a high price anyway. Adding the colour didn't really make much difference, to be honest. Was I perceiving in colour in the first place? No. The colour hadn't been a factor for me. It was all about the mechanics and creating some of those classic D&D style maps that we kind of grew up on when we were playing the Red Box set, for example, or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So that was... It is something to think about, but don't let that be a driver for you when you're designing your games. Unless the game's about colour, it's something that comes later. Right. Let's just carry on with those. I'm going to talk a bit about the game. I've got some paperwork here to have a look at, which deals with the earlier development of the game, and I'll show you some of the notes that I made and how I kind of the way that I started to form ideas for 2D6 Dungeon, and the kind of how my brain kind of poured it out. So we'll just quickly go through these. We've got dead end event table. We've got a dead end corridor. Oh, we've done that one already. Dead prisoner quests table. Now, the quest element. Talking about some of those early concepts. I wanted to have quests in the game. I wanted it to be a reality. I wanted smaller quests. I didn't want that to be the controlling factor. I'm one of these people that prefers to play an open world game. So I will games like DayZ Standalone, where you just go and you make your own stories and you're not following a set narrative. Really, 2D6 is an open world sandbox game. But what I thought I could do is maybe throw a few little quests in there. It doesn't matter if they're completed. That's not going to affect your ultimate progress. but it could throw in some other interesting elements. And this little table here, Dead Prisoner Quest table, does exactly that. So 2, the note mentions a magic user and a secret wand. Note use of magic user there, a little reference back to original D&D. Add secret wand quest. If you come across an enemy who uses magic and survive, roll a d6. On 1-2, you find a secret wand on the person. Roll on MW1, otherwise you keep looking. So that adds in some spice, something there, a bit extra there for you to follow up. I found that when I was writing the lower levels, there are less quests because they tend to be more focused on particular creatures and encountering those as you go through those levels. So the quests tend to be more prominent further up you are and less so further down. Hey Alan, how are you doing? Washington State, good to have you in. Forced vision. You face a creature who appears to have some form of mental or psychic power. You can see this via their attacks or description. Roll on the table if they are near death, viewing it as a way for them to recover. So something with a psychic power, and you can then roll on this. 9, the creature tries to project an image of a spear flying at you, but it fades before it hits you and you continue the fight. God intervention table. You have received the killing blow from an enemy or have failed your recovery from unconsciousness roll. This is a last-ditch attempt to save your adventurer. The god reaches down to help or looks on with pity. 10. You feel the steel rob you of your life, and for a second coldness grips you. But from the ground roots rise up and animate you as Radicina bids you to fight on with half your health points restored, plus 2 favour points. And just these are the last 2. Now we've got a couple more there. And we have hidden chest compartment. Part of the reason why I'm reading these is so I can familiarise myself again with them. I think it's probably a good little tip. If you haven't played for a while, you get back, you pick up the book again, have a quick flip through these, and it will kind of like, oh, I might use that one. Hidden chest compartment table, as it says. 11. Concealed in the lid is a small compartment. You force it open and find inside a potion wrapped in cloth. Roll on pot 2. Innate power table. This is one of my favourite ones. You face a humanoid creature who is losing too easily. They have had some bad rolls or suffering a mighty injury. At this point, they dig deep and call upon some innate power that is totally unexpected. Almost a bit like a mutant power. 6. A green glow surrounds the enemy and they gain 10 health points as they heal. So they've got magic power to heal themselves. Out of nowhere, 12. Out of nowhere, as if possessed by a higher power, the creature rises off the ground and explodes. So they can be a little bit bloody, but it's fun. Mushroom consumption table. Now, this was asked about quite a bit actually. Can we eat mushrooms and have effects and stuff like that? So I worked it into the stretch goals and thought it was quite fun. You find a mushroom through searching a space, or it is turned up at some loot, as some loot. Not all mushrooms are the same and can have different effects, good or bad. Here we go. What happens when you eat that mushroom? 9 again. The mushroom is tasty and unexpectedly fills you up. You do not need to eat a mushroom when you go down to the next level. Let's have a look here. Mushroom tastes foul and makes you feel sick instantly. It was a mistake. Lose 10 HP. Rare medical remedies table. Let's have a look here. Well, this is each description. Right, so now this is one that I know some people use. I think, Jeff, you use this one. I haven't used this one. I think on reflection, something that I could have done with this table is I could have put on here whether it makes the game easier or harder. In fact, most of these make it easier. So what am I saying? Of course it makes it easier, but the level at which it makes it easier is what I meant. So it could be that, say, for example, the golden elixir restores all your health points and 10 HP above the baseline. That is OP, and in a sense, maybe that's one that shouldn't be used if you're having an easy time. Maybe the golden elixir is only available for a short period, or if you get all those, and then that is super powerful. But there are things like the Callous Dole, anointed with the owner's blood, will absorb 20 damage or 1 fatal attack. So again, some of these actually were maybe some suggestions. Paste of slow healing. Yeah, this was part of the suggestions one, wasn't it? Yes, it was. So people threw these up as ideas, and then I kind of translated them into the game, which which worked perfectly fine as far as I can tell. Again, you can look at these tables as a way of either making it harder or easier. So if you're having a hard time, maybe plunder a table or two. Hello, good evening, morning, afternoon, and night. Hello, Scott, how are you doing? Good to see you, Scott. Scott has just done a video, a kind of tutorial to how to set your character up, and then the first few rooms. That's on his YouTube channel by the same Ithacus Bane. I never say it right, but that is the channel there. If you haven't checked that out, I would. I've got some 2d6 content up there, and I noticed it's doing really well, so that is class. Really well described, Scott. Thank you for doing that. And here we have secret rooms tables. Of course, like the closet spaces, table space must be completely surrounded, considered a void on the map, and generate dead end room as normal on a new exit for the room. Here we go. 5. Secret crypt. There is a sarcophagus here. If you open it, roll on L4UN and fight the undead. If you survive, roll on SLT2. Right, level 4 undead. That table comes with a warning, so that is a tough creature to face if you throw that in at an earlier stage. And then we've got a potions table, and so we've got rare potions and rare scrolls here that could be added into the equation, and these were also generated through the character. Shield Dice Studio caught a stream. Hope everyone's well. Patiently waiting for my 2d6 dungeon books. Shield Dice Studio, where did you what did you order? What was your order? Did you order a lair or a foe, or if it was just hardbacks? And then I can kind of let you know whether that should be. Right. So there you go. Quick look at those again. And very pleased with how that has gone. Right, so what I thought I'd do now is have a look at, hopefully that's not in, have a look at some of the early notes as a kind of a bit of a laugh. Let me just try and get some of these in order here. So we've got, that's the first map that I generated. Some of these things here. New tables, early tables. So, first playtest. This is the early bits here. Okay. Right. Jan. Or Jean. Okay, so I've had a few questions about how to develop a game like this. How do you go about doing it? What's involved? I'm not going to do a proper video about that, but in the short term, I thought I'd just get out a few of the early notes that I made and talk about where my brain was when I first started creating this game. Or Fortuna, of course. Good day. So, when I first, I think one of the important things to consider when you're creating any game is, the first question is, are you making a game that you would play? I think it's an important question. And that for me was really important. I strongly believe that the best games are the games that you want to play. If you're making a game which you're not that interested in, now you may have to do that if you're working for a studio, for example. But because I'm working for myself and I have my own little indie publisher, I thought to myself, what can I do to create a game? Baldur's Gate 3. Fair enough. If you're stuck on a project where you're not really that interested, but when I first started this game, I had imagined, right, I was going to be going. There was two things that I really wanted. Well, one key thing, I wanted to be able to generate a dungeon map. Okay. Now, I've spent a lot of time drawing maps. That is something that's been a big part of my life over the last 5 years, drawing maps. And I have had to imagine every type of room or space. Okay. And in fact, the way I got into industry was drawing maps and working with commissions like that. So I have known dungeons. And not just that, I've visited them in real life. So I go to churches, to crypts, graveyards, mausoleums, all sorts of places. I've seen these in reality. Obviously, the fantasy of it is nice to expand out the reality. And so one of the first things I thought, right, I need to know the types of room that I can generate. I was never in D&D, and Baldur's Gate 3 was the first game to get in D&D, and I love it a lot. Brilliant. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. I have played 1 and 2 a while back. I haven't had any time to play 3. It looks quite consuming. Maybe it's a bit. I'm into lo-fi at the moment a bit. I'm into the kind of more basic stuff. So for me, I quite like watching, say, Matt Colville playing NetHack, for example, which is as basic as you can get. In fact, that was it. That was one of the inspirations for me. It kind of got the juices going. Watching Matt Colville a year or so ago playing NetHack. Now, I'd seen NetHack, had a little dabble with NetHack, but I was slightly too young to be caught up in that early stage of dungeon crawling like that. I didn't get caught up with it. I came slightly later. But I was inspired by NetHack, the simplicity of it, and how it kind of how it was like Rogue, one of the early dungeon simulators. And I just thought, right, how can I make that? That was my concept. I want to play that. So I started listing. So I printed out these. One of my first processes. I thought, well, how can I brainstorm this? And just think about rooms that I can kind of then generate. I was thinking, I need to generate a certain number of rooms that would give it a good replayability factor, and I kind of settled upon the 36, which comes from the D66 or 2D6. And I printed out these sheets, and I started to list the different types of rooms that I kind of knew about and I'd drawn so often in the maps that I'd been commissioned to create. And of course, at this point as well, I'd already created, because this started in development last summer, I had already created Radzone, and that used a lot of tables, and I was really, if you could say, one of my obsessions is, I think as a designer, as a games designer, or any designer, you need to have cultural influences that almost are like obsessions. If there's something in your life that you're particularly interested in, and I am interested in randomness and making something as unique as you can each time, I'm not happy with that plot of just one storyline. I want lots of options. That's been an obsession. To the point where I can't play games now where I'm stuck on a narrative. It has to be something that I can create the narrative and then attach things to it. Victor 14. Hi Toby, greetings from New York. I had my first session yesterday and had a blast. I was wondering about initial weapons. Is there any substantive difference in picking one from the other? There are a few tweaks. Bob did a table on the Facebook group which shows you which ones are Baldur's Gate 1 was awesome. Yeah, I love that game. Dungeon Master, Eye of the Beholder, they're both two of my favourite games. It's a really good question, Victor. There isn't a huge difference. What I tried to do with that was I tried to create different styles. So you're kind of living a style through your weapon. So bludgeoning, slicing, or kind of cleaving, those sorts of different elements to it to give your character more narrative through the weapon they used. So one of the things that people say about the game is, why aren't there more weapons? Well, I tried to, with those three, cover three types of weapon, in a sense, and then the narrative takes over with the title of the attack. So, for example, like what have we got here? Hack, or hew, or shear, reeling slam. I tried to really kind of pulsating crunch. I was trying to use descriptive words to give the story some excitement. So that was really my main focus with that, was to create more narrative through the thing. But people are like, I've had a few people say, well, why aren't there more weapons? We want more weapons. And why isn't there a magic user? And I think people kind of miss... It was more about story than necessarily functionality of the different types of weapon. So what can I... That's really the truth of it. I'm working on some concepts for a magic system. So that will be in the expansion. But yeah, so Victor says, oh, I see. So essentially it's more about flavour than actual game mechanics. Well, I mean, I have sort of carefully looked at the balance of, when I'm creating those maneuvers, I have carefully selected the dice sets so that there's one or two that are missed. So there are blank blind spots, and that they cover a range of things, and that the more effective swings that do more damage are harder to roll than the ones that do less damage. So there is mechanics built around it. So by no means that they are randomly selected, but it's a good combination of both. And I think that you'll see that with my work, that I try to combine narrative with mechanics, and the mechanics has to slot nicely with the narrative. It's just a random number on a dice. It's a kind of, there are reasons for the 6 and the 1 because it's a harder swing, say, for example. I remember an early computer game on DOS called Hack. I think it's related or led to NetHack. You probably did. Loved playing Hack in the early 1980s. Yeah, and there were a number of those early 8-bit games or just text games. I mean, when I used to go down to the local store buy a cassette for my Commodore 64, it would sometimes just be a text-based game, and I didn't mind that at all, actually. I was looking to try and break it and try and figure out other ways around it, but I think you missed my post before. During editing part 2 video, I noticed a mistake on the tables. Okay, I probably did. Well, we'll gloss over that for the minute. Maybe email that one to me, Scott. Okay. No, I'm sure if I didn't I think I did update that one. So one of the mistakes that I made, and that is the formats. Working with the tables. Okay, this is interesting. So we've got some early tables here. This was my kind of, I was listing off the tables, thinking, right, how can I encounter these tables? And yeah. So Fortuna, that is a good question. I'll come to that in a sec. With the tables, I perhaps used the wrong format. They look great, but it was a lot of hard work to put them in and change them to images. And the translation meant that sometimes the way that the tables lined up, or there was a discrepancy with maybe the page numbers and the index, and it made it quite difficult for me to then go back and sort all that out and cover everything. I tried my hardest, and some great feedback and play testing from you guys was able to pick up, a large amount of those errors. But I suspect, just because of the sheer number of tables, that there's probably some in there which I've missed. Hopefully not too many. So, will I do any other expansions? Now, Fortuna, I have spoken about this before, but that's not a problem. There is 2D6 Kingdom coming in at the end of the year. I want to make sure everybody gets all of their stuff. The game is then released on our website, and it's allowed to populate, if you like. Then we have 2D6 Kingdom, which is the overland expansion for 2D6 Dungeon. They'll work together. You have the same character. He has a homestead, and he can develop that homestead and expand and explore the land around that. So, and there'll be adventures and ways of growing the kingdom and expanding out into almost like, becoming like a mayor or a king of it. Maybe not a king, even though it's a kingdom. That would probably be the ultimate goal. But, a bit like when Conan sits on the chair at the end and becomes the king, if you like, of Hyboria. And that's a sort of vision. So, but that's going to include 2 more layers, and it's going to include a magic system, which is a bit maybe spell casting system that can fit in alongside what's going on with this other stuff. So there's other bits and pieces that goes together, and yeah, it's exciting. In the meantime, there's going to be like a 2 or 3 month hiatus for me, in that space I will be writing the supplement, a D&D supplement called The Minotaur Labyrinth, which is the 4th book to the Infested Building series, which is basically part of the series that I've been doing for the last 2 years. And it's come around to do the 4th book, and it'll be a nice break for me from the 2d6, because that is all-consuming headspace. And I'm also going to be releasing a small game, which is no way as involved as 2d6, but it's a small game that's going to go on itch.io, because I just love designing games, and I just sort of do it in my spare time. And it's going to be called Intergalactic Space Trader, and it's going to be a small kind of little manuals type game that has all types of... You basically, if you know the game Elite or Elite Frontier, you're going to have 4 little trade books. You can carry them around. You don't need dice necessarily, and you can do a little bit of trading, fly your ships, upgrade your ships, and it's going to be exciting little game that I'm working on at the moment. It's a bit more involved than I thought it would be, but I want to try and get it right, because it's a game that I'd like to have myself and just carry around and play a little bit every now and again. So that's the thing. That's the project art for this year for DR Games. Right, that was quite a long answer. Sorry about that. Let's have a look. I was brought up with DOS text adventure games. Neil, good to see you, Neil. Absolutely. All that stuff, all the DOS games, early PC stuff. I guess it was more mid-1980s. I had a floppy disk, 5¼ inch. Yes, simple concept and very effective. Maybe that's why I was drawn to your game. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, look, I'm sitting next to a Commodore 64. I was brought up on that kind of 8-bit, 16-bit type environment, and it deeply informs. Hey Todd, good to see you. Deeply informs all this stuff. I would say as well, I do like the physical stuff. I do like having something to hold and to do. So that's quite exciting. So let's just guess it. Yes, Victor. Thanks. Yes, I get and love the mechanics behind the different maneuvers and how the easy to roll and shift to do less damage than the harder ones. Thanks. No problem. If you've got any other questions, do throw them at me. Fortuna says, nice. I hope I can use the Awaken Realms dice to have a little life in the game. Yeah, why not? We need some 2d6 dungeon dice, don't we? Seriously do. I haven't really had any time to approach any company. So if you're a dice company watching this and you want to do a 2d6 dungeon dice, then we should look at it. Maybe Maybe there's a way of doing doors. Yes to dice, says Bubba Hamilton. Good to see you. Yeah, definitely on the cards. Definitely, hopefully, we'll have it ready. Something lined up for the expansion. That would be cool. Sounds like some interesting stuff coming out, man. Can't wait. Well, thank you, David. So we'll skip back to this. So I had this idea. Before it was a simple concept that we all know and we all love, us dungeon delvers. I mean, I used to love Hero Quest and Dungeons & Dragons, the Red Box set, AD&D. I ran all those for my brothers, and just drawing those dungeons and taking myself back And I thought, how can I tap into that nostalgia? Let's do something. But I need something that's random and generates. And I'd seen a lot of the stuff on the market already. And for me, it just wasn't random enough. It just was that I needed more. And so I thought, right, I'm going to start generating rooms and see where it takes me. Start coming up with rooms. And so I started coming up with exit types. And I started to list dungeon human functional spaces. It didn't turn out like this, but this was like one of the first tables. Library, manuscript store, paper store, papyrus making rooms, etching workshop, ink and dyeing mixing rooms, laundry room, washing space, bathing hall, cleaning store. These were some of the original rooms that I thought up. Dining room, mess hall, bar room. Some of them I kept. Some of them I thought it just becomes a bit repetitive. Bathing hall, papyrus making room. I just thought that was maybe a little bit too much detail, so I condensed it down a little bit. Anyway, I kept doing these, and I think to myself, how could I organise a dungeon? So that very process, and I think this is an important thing to take away as a designer. You have to set yourself design tasks as you're doing the game. So you set yourself, I'm going to design some rooms, but that then makes you think about something else. It makes you think about, well, what's the theme of the dungeon? Now that's because that's not an obvious question, because when you first start a dungeon, you start kind of like a base. You're like, well, it's a dungeon, what else is it? Well, actually, you got to think, what am I going to have on each level? How does that work? How does a dungeon work? So it's a nice thing. So if you're in the process of designing something or creating something, set yourself a task, work hard on it, and then the thought process starts to make you question the understanding behind it. Regarding inventive usage, the level 1 canteen description only mentions the bar, tables and chairs. But is it okay to assume that empty bottles, clothes and food could be found and gathered? And yes to dice too, says Victor. Yeah, well, definitely. I think we're going to have to come up with something on the dice front. And so with the inventive usage, that was a concept that came about halfway through the design process, because I was saying to myself, how can we DM this? Because I realised I was DMing it and playing it. And I thought, how can that be managed? And I thought to myself, well, project that adventurer into the dungeon. That's you there in that space. Why the hell can't you interact with the stuff in the descriptions? So the answer, Victor, is yes. You can take it that way, but yet others may not. And I think there's a flexibility that goes along with the inventive usage, and I'm happy for people to interpret it how they feel. So yes, there could be clothes and food there. I personally don't assume there's food anywhere unless it mentions it. Just because that is a part of the mechanic of the game, the ration system. And clearly on some of the encounters it says you find this food. But there's absolutely no reason, because you don't really go into canteens or spaces like that very often, that you can't assume that is the case. I've really been delighted to see some of the narratives that people have about their experiences in the rooms where they go in. And I think that is perfectly fine. By all means, take that stuff and run with it. Make a story out of it. It's perfectly fine. So there's a kind of like a bit of a mix there for you, Victor. Until there are 2d6 dice, I'll use my Dragon and Skulls dice, Steve Jackson Games. The ones have either a dragon or skull would be 100% on a 2d6 dice. I see, yeah. What is your favourite chart to roll on? BJJ Zombie, good question. That is a good question. There are fair few charts, but I have to say my favourite charts to roll on are the... let me show you. The hardest ones to read. Not on purpose. Here we go. Here's an example. So my favourite charts to roll on are the interruptions and the unexpected tables. And the reason for this is there's a lot of narrative and interaction that can come from these. So these took a lot to create. I mean, this has also come from a serious amount of creative writing and DMing that I've done over the years. So to have to think up 36 descriptions like this, one of these tables every 2 levels, it was a really intensive process, and I kind of like, blimey, I've set myself a huge task here. And I felt that on a number of occasions, but I just went with it. The encouragement and the drive behind the community just kept me going, and I pushed on, and we got this huge book of tables as a result. And the reasons why I like these tables is because, well, there's a number of things. The writing is small, so you can't glance at it and know which one's better. So this is a complete mystery, this table, when you look at it. It's a side effect of the table, the text being small within the box, a positive side effect. And when you read it, it gives you information about the space. And that space, that then allows you to role play, and as Victor was saying, to use inventive usage as a way of expanding out the story and your options and your experiences and the kind of that great narrative of your adventurer. So you glance to your right and see a massive ethereal lion's head swoop down on you. Roll 2d6 and add your discipline. On an 8 or above, you close your eyes and banish the spectral demon. Otherwise, fear runs down your spine. You feel its jaws rake your body. Lose 8 HP. Just bang, brings it to life, And that's these roleplay tables. And it's like that they were my favourite ones in Rad Zone Totality as well, where you really get that. I wrote a lot of these for Rad Zone Totality, my previous game, and they really bring out the story. And you can kind of clutch onto those and run with it. So that's really cool. I also like the rune table as well. And some of them I've tried to keep short naturally. So, you don't want to read too much about the types of loot that you will necessarily find. You might just want to get some gold coins going. Those are great. Really can't wait to get this. Cool, man. Thank you. Dave says I have to sign off now. Have a great day, everyone. David, thank you for coming in. Appreciate that. And I will catch up with you soon, no doubt. Okay, so to jump back onto this as well. I started generating the tables. I knew that I was going to have to in some way create a generation system for the tables, for the dungeon. And when I did that, it was a very natural process of realising, 2d6 was what I was going to work with. Always wanted to work with d6, just largely because everybody has d6. I just thought it's such a great thing. And when I thought about the 2d6 element and the bell curve of the 2d6, the more common numbers being in the middle and the rarer numbers at the end, I just thought, right, we've got a little bit of play here. We can add some more exciting stuff at either end, the bad and the good stuff, and then the more common stuff in the middle. And basic games like Catan, say for example, use a similar system whereby you roll 2d6 and you get all the numbers that are red on the board. They're more common, so people tend to have those ones and get the resources for that. So as a system, the 2d6 is obviously widely used. And say, I know that Matt Colville at with his new roleplay game is seriously considering using 2d6 as his dice because of that bell curve, you know. Hey Toby, I've been Dominic. How are you doing, my friend? I've been at the table all morning. Can't stop going. Just one more room. Excellent. I know, and that's the thing about it. It flows so quickly, doesn't it? It's exciting. The narrative that pops up. Even if I do say so myself. I hate D6s. The bell curve leans heavily to the left for me. Yeah. The dice gods can be brutal. And the funny thing is, Scott, we get it on camera, so we know. Jeff, the dice, as I read, the dice gods can be cruel, but I find that they kind of even themselves out, to be honest. Right. So, as I was saying before, I was faced with a problem, and I then had to think about what the dungeon was about, you know, and I started to write these things down here. So I came up with this list, and this was my first list of what would be on the levels. Victor says, love the creative usage. My character happened to be blooded and found a fountain for one of the blind god. Yes. She washed herself, and because the god is not fond of blood, I gave her -1 favour. I love it. That is the sort of that is another level, and it kind of really plays into the narrative of the story. I like it. I like it a lot. That's a really good idea. Wait till you see part 2. I'm looking forward to it. Well, you know, it's a bit of a running joke, isn't it? So whenever you do roll a low number on your videos, I do laugh. You know, not in a horrible way or anything, but like a knowing this was inevitable type laugh. The addiction sneaks up on you there, Dom. Todd says, yeah. It is. That is the whole thing. I didn't want anything too complicated. I didn't want it too simple. I wanted the sense of narrative driven through the game. Yeah, Scott. Hey, what a great idea. I think it may even be. You know, I was thinking about this the other day. We've had some great stories and some great ideas. It may be worth putting together something like some examples of masterful inventive usage. You know, how to really flex that imagination muscle. And I think that I've just heard some great stuff. I'm like, wow, that is just such great application. So we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see. In fact, things that gods don't like might be a good thing to have as an expansion, as a part of a new rule set. Just got to get my pencil. Hang on. So, things that gods don't like. Just making a note of that. Good idea. I actually mentioned this during the next video, how the inventive users can bring actual RPG elements into the game. that is exactly it. Yeah. So, well, hopefully there's enough tools there for... oh my god, some of the stuff I've seen has been fantastic. I just love reading people's adventures. Todd, your narratives, blimey. Get onto the thing and read Todd's narratives as well. They are fantastic. And, okay, it's all written, but it kind of flows really naturally. So, we've got a... so I had a look here. I thought to myself, right, so I'm going to have levels. So the kitchens, Martial Enterprise, workshops and healers, quarters and mess, treasure chambers, dungeon lords, creature den, crypt level, magical halls, monster maze, cultist caverns, demon pits. Well, I kind of had to scrap this. I took some of it with it. I took some of it with me. So I liked the dungeon lords. I thought this is ultimately what it's about, the lords of the dungeon. I've been sadly otherwise occupied lately. Todd, do not worry about it. You've put a massive amount of content into this community and you'll be back on it. Don't worry. There's going to be waves of stuff. I don't expect you to produce these amazing maps all the time, you know. There's going to be a break in it. It's perfectly natural. I would be cool idea that some gods don't get along with others. So a favour point with one would mean a negative with another. Now that is an interesting idea. That's like another complex that you'd have to cross-reference tables to check that one, wouldn't you? I mean, okay, yes, we cross-reference a lot. We check tables. We rarely cross-reference them to sort of like check one thing to another and then one table, if you see what I'm saying. But yeah, that could work. Could work. That's something to think about. I like that. But there needs... the god element of it is strong. I think it's a question of, if I add too much more god stuff in, does that become the overriding driver for the game? See, this is about balancing elements of the game. Warframe does this with the syndicates. Boosting one brings negative to another. Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it in other games. I just miss playing. Lol. Todd, you'll get back on it. You'll get back on it. So with this list, I had to take out, because if you explored a whole level with quarters and mess, you potentially end up fighting 100 people. So I just thought that's impossible. Workshops and healers, that's going to be pretty boring just to explore workshops. Martial Enterprise, yes, I quite like that concept. Martial. Treasure chambers. If you have a treasure chamber, right, you're just going to then just be treasure all the time. It just wouldn't make sense. We wanted some sort of creature den, magic, monsters, cults. So it kind of, I took some of these ideas and they became these. So the domain, the crypt, the haunted, the infernal. I didn't put any undead in. I put crypt level there, the crypt. So we want the classic crypt dungeon type scenario or situation. So that led to that. And I was very much like, wow, okay. So, I then started to, I usually do one A5 sheet. So, for example, I'll do a creation sheet where I just have a whole bunch of stuff. Just splurge it on there, drawings, be something like that. Just completely rammed with stuff. And I'll refer to it all the time as I'm making things more solid. With this, it wasn't quite like that. Usually, that is the key to it. But this, it was more spread out and with processes. So this game was designed through a series of processes. And I usually date these. There's no date on that. This is sort of September, August last year. And I'm kind of like, I need like creature cards. Is that focusing all right there? Can we see that? Okay. Let's have a look here. A bit more like there. Too much? No. So 36 different room types on 2 die. So that was one of the concepts. Already I was playing around. So for me, the tools of 2d6 were the dice. I think, how can I use these dice in a creative way? So I figured out that we could have a primary and a secondary die, and they could have functions. So I went heavy on this. And I kind of figured out that it says in combat you have more combos that are that assigned a dice sequence and result in successfully completed actions such as Mighty Swing or Fireball. See, I was including magic in it then. Primary dice and secondary dice can be used to turn the dice up a number to adjust the attack or complete the maneuver. So I had that concept locked in early on the creation of the game. And I was applying the Radzone tables principle to this, that they were going to be referring to tables. So the creation of Radzone really kind of informed what tools I could potentially use in this game. So the tools that work well in that one, I was kind of bringing across. They are applied quite differently, but because they're kind of more random than Radzone. Radzone just get to a space, roll on it, and that's it. With this, is a whole sequence of random rolling tables. Nice to see your thought process. Thanks, Jeff. I didn't yet play the game because I'm waiting for the foe, but did you ever consider using as other dice, D4 and D20 optional, to get more immersive or increased difficulty to play through? I did, yes, absolutely. Did I? I laboured this point in my brain. Should I use D20? Should I use D10 or the 100% dice? And I was like, well, I can get everything I want out of the D6. So why take it any further? The combinations that I could get through rolling a D6, I thought they were yeah. So this is stuff is kind of blood fury abilities. So there's a kind of like So I did, but then I thought I'm going to keep it to 6 and challenge myself and see if I can make it like that. Yeah, fortunately, maybe I have, but then I thought, no, I'm going to stick with the 2d6 and we're going to make it work. Just because I thought that's more universally kind of available. Yeah, 2d6 is enough. Thanks, Chris. I mean, I'm not apologising for not using the other ones. Don't get me wrong. But what I think is, I think people should understand why 2d6 was important to me. It's because they're the universal dice. It's because everybody has 2d6. I didn't want any barriers to this game. I didn't want people to have to try and find 4d20 and play. I didn't want that. I wanted it completely approachable. That's why the colours on the spines became important. That's why the yellows became. I wanted access. I wanted it as available to people as possible. That was really one of the core reasons why I went with the D6. So I had locked in this whole D6 idea early on. It was the manoeuvres thing that really triggered it for me. It was I need some way to demonstrate how you might move. And by shifting the dice, it kind of made it important. Roll 5 dice in the primary and secondary are included and are different colours. And again, the colours are separate for primary. These go first and reveal the room type out of 36, and then the following dice reveal more details like the space is messy with rough walls in which you spot a creature or a crevice, say for example. And already at this stage I was like, well, okay, so we're going to have different dice combinations. We can give these names. I love naming things. Oh, it's just one of my favourite things to do. But I love exploring the thesaurus and looking at meanings and listening to the sounds of words and the kind of the excitement they can give to something. So thump, wallop, slug, pound, clobber, buffet, smack, crush, knock, cleave. Just love those words. It was almost 5d6. Yeah, I know. It does look that way. But there is 36 there, so it is definitely 2d6 in a sense, d66. You can't do a maneuver, then you miss as if clumsily swiping, missing your opponent, or glancing off their armour. So there was a primary, secondary, tertiary die. We didn't do the tertiary. I just didn't think we needed that extra. And I hadn't obviously thought of primary or critical hits as we commonly know them. I wanted to give it a different name, prime attacks. But then, so I was calling them pure rolls, adjusted rolls. Now, one of the things that I plan to do is it's on my list. I've written it down. You see this locked on dice. So one of my ideas was, and I'm going to use it. So I'm not throwing this away. But so the dice, there's going to be a system. There's going to be a game. It's going to be a simple little game you can print out. Hopefully, I keep saying this, where there's maneuvers. So you have maybe a 2, 3, 4, 4, and every time you roll it, you put the dice on these, and these lead to swipe. So that if you manage to get the dice to that, you swipe d6 damage. This won't be part of this game. This is for a different game, but it comes from my experimenting with this. So this might be a 1. You can pick one or the other. Damage armor. Okay, so this goes to there, and you each have one of these. So this might be a particular combo, right? It's called something, and you say, right, I'm going to perform this maneuver, and you pull that out, and you have that available there, or you've been trained in certain maneuvers, and you roll die, and you can place them on there and complete certain maneuvers, and it does certain damage. This is a way. I thought in the end it would be too involved for 2d6 the game, but this concept I thought we could have. Maybe this could be assigned to an ogre. Yes. And ogre, and he has these particular attacks. So you have you roll 5 dice for the enemy, and there's 5 of these lined up, and you can put the dice on these, and they begin to form movement. You need lots of dice. That was all part of this early kind of ideas. This is all how I was thinking about how can I shift the dice, turn the dice, make it interactive. You can see up here. I always knew that 2d6 was gonna be the cause of many a marital argument, because there was a lot of for print and play. There's a lot of printing. As Dominic says, it will be a simple game. Fast forward it 6 months, and my wife has given me the business for printing 895 pages to play test. Well, look, I thank you a lot for doing it. The game has definitely benefited from everybody's play testing. I tell you that much. instead of a single sheet, you could produce them as a transparent and have one sheet for weapon type and an overlay for maneuvers, proving more combos. Thinking Gloom. Yeah, I was thinking, well, you know, for that particular game, Scott, what's the game called? Tales Over Coffee, Adventures Over Coffee, something like that. I thought I could just produce some little cards, fun cards that you could just have like a set of 10 and play them and interact and see how the combos, see how the fight sequences. Quests Over Coffee, exactly. So like a Quests Over Coffee format, a card format with that dice combo example, and then you would just have the monster there, and some other experiences to go with it. Because you see, for me, when I look at, I get quite frustrated when I look at a lot of games and the combat or the rolling for attacking, it's pretty boring. And I've seen a few new role-playing games, and where they've been talking about taking away the attack dice. I personally feel like that's an opportunity to create something new. And there's still plenty of space to innovate, and we're seeing it. Like Daniel at Dungeon Dive, check out his YouTube channel, was saying in his latest video what a rich tapestry of adventure games we have at the moment. And that really started to bloom coming out of the lockdown. And people spent some time on their own realising that solo player games can be massive, it can be huge. And then we see channels like Scott's channel, like Daniel's channel, starting to grow and bloom. The interest is there. There's products. And what's really cool is it's a sector that embraces indie publishers. So what that facilitates is people like Scott, people like Daniel, people like me. It allows us to be able to then make our own games and sell them within that area, and then maybe move into small publishing like I've done. And I've been doing this full time for 2 years now, part time for 3 years before that. And I'm in a position now where this supports my family doing these games. I'm really lucky, and I've got a lot of creative experience. I studied art and design, so I've got a bit of a head start, and I was a teacher as well, which helps with presentation. So I've got transferable skills which really helped me into this industry. But I just think I can see it growing and expanding. And next year at UK Games Expo, I will have a bigger stand, pushing 2D6 Dungeon, pushing solo player games, so people will see the solo player presence. And I know that there'll be other groups and other people doing exactly the same, increasing the presence. That's the most obvious presence in the gaming industry in the UK. And hopefully at Gen Con this year, there were lots of solo player. In fact, there's the new Star Trek solo player game, which looks excellent. Captain's Log or something it's called. Now I want to get a copy of that and read through that and maybe give that a go. That's more journaling. I still think there's a better way of doing stuff like that one, the Star Trek one. But it still looks pretty damn cool, and I think it's in the top 10 on DriveThruRPG. So they're doing well for themselves. So moving on, just a little bit more insight into designing the game. So I'd already got, so I had come up with some concepts here for the type of human, because I just realised that the human element was important. So who were these people we were fighting? And early on I got jailer, guard, thug, veteran, scout, just sort of standard type people you would experience in all of these games. And I'm thinking, right, so I need to be able to roll for one of those, And then I was thinking, how can I create these creatures? You know, what format are they going to take? I've got interrupt, I've got the shift in there, I've got the health. Really, that are kind of all slotted nicely in. And that was basically, as I was saying, from doing the tables initially, embracing the 2d6, and then looking for some way of creating some kind of original way of creating a different sort of combat system. And then I started to throw other things in. So moving on, basics here. Note, on September, the 2nd of September 2022, prisoners liberated as a stat total, which you roll on a table for at the end of the adventure. Some may escape or die to reward the character. So you've got some pretty solid concepts coming out. Here's some earlier designs that I was working on for the cards there. So it was kind of like getting on. Then I thought, right, how can I generate rooms? How can I generate this dungeon? And this is my kind of my sheet on how I kind of came about it. So this is the very first little space drawing down here. If you're a 6, roll a larger feature. Options to inherit with found objects. Door placement. If it starts on a map boundary wall, there are no doors. Doors are placed. Set the edge. So here we go. Set the edge. First roll the dimensions doubles. Add on another roll to X and Y dimensions. Extra size can only be added once. 1 creates a corridor. That naturally came back. So I started to actually physically draw the rooms. What I realised, it's a pretty obvious thing to say really, and it's slotted so nicely into the generation system, was that when I rolled the room dimensions, I thought, oh damn, I've rolled a 1. It's not a room, is it? And then suddenly I was like, oh, it's a corridor. It's like it just appeared there. And that was, again, that was actually the physical practice of it, is actually physically doing it. Instead of a single sheet, you could produce them as a oh yes, I read that one. Yeah, that's something to think about, Scott. Something to think about. Second roll, doors in the room, and I already had it down to 1 to 3, but then I added a dead end. Second dice, first wall, and then kind of the positioning of it. If the roll room crosses another room, connect it with a straight corridor from the doorway. And we even got a stain on the sheet here from a cup of tea, I'd imagine, or some maybe the or something like that. I don't know. So there's thoughts of secret doors, and this was like already coming in there. So I was really pleased. Then I started to play around. And I did some more generation of the rooms, and I thought it was looking like those dungeons that I used to explore. And I was like, wow, it is working. It is working. And you know, it says secret doors there. That got taken out in a sense as we did it. That is one of the first sheets character sheets that I drew. Just figuring it out. There's an extra maneuver there. We don't need that. Magic items. Generally, this is pretty spot on really from as an early prototype. So it kind of slotted together nicely. Again, the focus was to get around this dice system. Okay, so there's 2 more stages I want to just show you. This isn't everything, so this is a design sheet for the gods. So how did I come up with the gods? Well, I always start to brainstorm, so I might start to list words That's always a good way of doing it. Start by listing some words. What you're doing is you're sort of drumming up the flavour, the atmosphere for that design, for that feature. And then, again, drawing out the words that really work. So we've got darkness. We're looking at other words. And I thought, I like to draw upon some base or knowledge that already exists and use it as inspiration. Not other games. I rarely take other games. I'm not one. I know some people like to design and they will nick bits from different things and put them together, slightly rebrand it. That's not how I do it. I like to come up with something that is rooted in either a physical thing, a scientific thing, or words. So for when I was naming the subterranean gods, I went right. I'm going to make up some words. Well, not make them up. I'm going to use another language. So I went into Google and I used Romanian words, replacing them and slightly changing them a little bit for the words that I felt represented what I wanted the gods to represent. So trying to give each one a different area that comes from being underground. So that's where these words come from. They come from a Romanian, from the Romanian translations. And I just liked the sound of them. They were solid and gritty, and I just went with it. And I had to look at some other languages, but I said use these because as much as English is the mother tongue, people aren't necessarily going to know. Well, definitely not going to know these are Romanian. In fact, I didn't think anybody would guess. And it's funny because then about just shortly after we released it, I had a comment on one of the YouTube videos where one of the guys who was Romanian said he was just delighted that I had used Romanian words in the game and that he recognised what they were. And I just smiled internally when that happened because I just think the language and words and letters, it's so rich. We can take so much from all these sorts of sounds and interesting things. So there's a little insight into a creative process. So so that's the foundation, right? Then I will start creating lists. Now I literally have hundreds of small bits of paper. So bits of paper like that. And I will just write on them, like these bits of paper that you've seen. And I will just write notes on them and keep them close. And I then get a marker and I will write through them. Now, when I've got a lot more to do, I will use marker to cross through. It's one of these things I do that helps me see things are complete and pushes me on. It motivates me. So get all these crossed off. I feel like I've achieved something. I haven't really, but it's kind of like it's like a motivational thing for someone, especially if you're working on your own. I find this sort of thing works really well. So it was clear to me that I needed new tables, quest items, patrol tables, concealed tables, trap tables, and I was doing these and crossing them off as I was going. And then I knew additional rules, and then this was as I was writing the rule book. So I knew that I had to add these things in, and this was from feedback. And captors table doesn't really. That's stuff that they got rewritten. Tips on writing gems, low quality gems. This was probably some feedback later on. This one. And so I go through, and then I'll start to do play testing. And I'm brutally honest. I will you make notes like I do, scattered on small pieces of paper. There's hope for me yet. I wouldn't say that, but because I don't know how good that system is, but that is exactly how I do it. So as I'm playtesting, I'm making copious notes, and then I will cross through them when I've actioned them. That doesn't mean I've incorporated them. I might have looked at it again and thought, right, that isn't working. So I will then that cancels, if you like. A single dice on an armor piece indicates a primary dice. I hadn't made a note of that in the rules. It's pretty clear we know that's the case, but I hadn't actually written that in. If the enemy cannot harm you, it's an instant kill. Need another random pouch table. Add 2 traits in XP and HP character sheets. Shift +2 for adventurers. Door ratio to change. Rooms of 6 squares or less table. Find more. So I'm realising I need a small table. I need a large table. Find more herbs in pouches. It's little things like this. Dispel doubles on character sheet. Coin section on the treasure. And this is all as a result of playtesting. Items stored, written on a separate sheet. Mark exits with an E. List of miscellaneous items for sale. When returned from town, soaked or blood status disappears. Squished rooms that become corridors. How do you know it's the last room? Really key stuff that you need to cover in the book. Little questions that thing, and it's same again on this sheet here. Yeah. So that is largely what I want to show you. I feel like I will do more stuff like this and maybe do some questions and answers. There's definitely people who want to talk to me about game design. So hopefully that was a little bit useful for somebody. I hope so. And yeah, it's a little bit of an insight. Let's get a bit more. So we are at the stage now where we have just put this here. Sent the Lairs and the Foe for print, and they went today. We had a few other issues come up. So with the Foe, we had the page numbers were obscured in some rooms, so I had to go in and check that. They nearly printed that with that error. Thankfully, we picked it up. That has been corrected and sent back to them. They've sent the proofs. We've given the go ahead, and the Lairs is done. I've added a little bit extra into the Lairs. I'm going to update the PDF. I put in the backs of the cards, and I put in an additional picture, just because I was looking at it and thinking, for a print book rather than a PDF, we could have a little bit more in here. So I thought, right, I'll add those extra bits for the PDF. I'm going to update that on the download link. It doesn't change the content of the game at all, so don't worry about that. You don't really need to re-download it, but I will update the PDF. It just makes the print version look a little bit more complete, if you like. So no problem, Dominic. No problem. Hopefully that was enlightening, that little bit there. So we've got those two things. So the Foe and the Lairs. The Lairs is going to be back on the 5th of September. And yeah, no, I'm eager. The Foe has taken a bit longer. Part of it is, and this is the first time we've ever printed any faux leathers, they have to set the leather, the graphic, on the front of the leather. It's like it's an embossed. So it's not embossed. It's sunk in, debossed or something like that. I think they call it. So it's pressed in to the leather covers. So we had to back and forwards about the graphics and the quality and the sharpness. That took a bit longer. They then wanted to send me a hard copy of the contents, not the leather. So they sent that through. That took a bit longer. So it's kind of dragged out a little bit, and it's gone to print today or yesterday. What day is it today? Monday. Today, and so it's 3 weeks from now. Unfortunately, we've got to wait 3 weeks. It's going to be worth the wait, and then we're going to send them out straight away when we get them, and we'll do a video looking at the faux leathers. We're going to do a faux leather as long as these are good. I'm sure they will be, no doubt. We will send the faux leathers. We will do a faux leather for the expansion book as well. So there'll be like a set of faux leathers that people can get. So yes, I know. Fortuna, it's a bit longer. Sorry to say. Did the Lairs digital version get published somewhere? Yes. It did, Jeff. I don't remember seeing it announced as being officially released to backers. I emailed it out to everybody. Now, we have had a bit problem with your emails before, haven't we, Jeff? I should have put it on the update today. I should have said the layers have been sent. I'll do a quick update, maybe. They have been sent. All the digitals have been sent. We sent out something like 800 emails. With the link, and I'll send it through, Jeff. I got the test version, but not the follow-up finished version. Weird stuff with my emails. I'm pretty sure I didn't go through all the emails, but yeah, it should be there. I'll send it. I'll send that through. It's the same link, though. It's the same link, Jeff, that you've got. Just to re-download that link. Fortuna, not a problem, mate. But at the end of half of the I won't be at home, but I'm looking forward in the update. Yes, I see what you mean. I will. Yeah, we'll get some more. So there's a little bit of space. There's a little bit of space coming up when I'm going to start, where there's not actually any other creation on 2D6 for the next couple of weeks. It's just basically physical posting out once we get them back. We'll do an update then. So in the meantime, I'm going to be doing some other writing on, as I say, the Mindful Labyrinth and Intergalactic Space Trader, my elite manual, my elite game. Just basically has these little. That'll be available soon. So. The faux leather has its own special leather cover. Okay, so it is as seen. There's a picture of it. Well, there's a mock-up of it on the campaign in the section. It says dark leather cover with the with a border with 2d6 debossed onto the leather. It's got along the spine as well, and on the back it's got a nice kind of border as well with DR Games. So it's kind of like exclusive, minimal cover, and then you open it up into the game, into the contents, like you would do the hardback. So yeah, that's exciting. You know, it's the first time we've done something like that, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how that works. Okay. Now, if anybody's got any other questions, then I can go ahead and answer those. Otherwise, we've kind of got we're largely, we discussed stuff. Bubba, thanks for making this game. I can't wait to crack it open and play. When the layers, the whole 2D6 package, are sent out on the 6th of September, about how long does it take? Will it make it to Canada? So we've been finding that it's a week to 2 weeks. That's roughly speaking how long it is. Now, it does obviously depend. If the package is slightly heavier, it can take slightly longer. So there's always that to think about as well. But yeah, I will, as and when things happen, I will keep people appraised. This digital version, me not mentioning that, is a bit unlike me. Blaine, Toby, I have ordered the hardcover books, and my concern is, how does the books open and stay open? Well, I've always said the hardcover is more of a collectible copy, but this is the hardback here. So this is the hardcover. Go a little bit higher here. So the hard. Put that over there. This is the hardback, of course, with the lettering on the spine, of course. It's not a cheap book. This is an expensive book, and you can see this is basically, this one hasn't really been opened much. That's its give, and then if I want to read a table, I can just hold it like that, read it, read another table. Thanks, I'm chomping at the bit here. I know. It's frustrating for me as well when people are asking, where's my book? Where's my book? We try our hardest to get it out as quickly as we can. And then like that. There's no problem with reading anything near the spine. I'm not. It is a hardback, so it will close. Well, I mean, you can see So I hope that, Blaine, answers your question. I'd be very happy. You could easily play from this. Is hardback only one-time print, or can you still order it from your website, or will there be only PDF? Sorry for grammar. It's fine. The hardback, you can still order the hardback at the moment. So there's a process whereby we're loyal to all our backers naturally. Now you can become a backer and you can fill in the late pledge form. If you go to the Kickstarter page, and on the Kickstarter for the page for 2D6, at the top there's a blue late pledges button. If you click on that, yeah, and then it takes you to the form, you can fill it out, and on there you can put a note at the bottom saying, I'm already a pledger, I just want to add the hardback. We then buoy for the hardback and send you a hardback. Once everybody's got their pledges, right, all the original backers, then we're going to put it on our website, which is drgames.co.uk, and that is basically where you'll then buy the physical products from, and we will keep a stock of these in our house, which I am lucky enough to have a big office in my house, and we then we then process it ourselves and send it out. That's how we're going to do it. These will be available, and then with the new Kickstarter later in the year, all these original games are obviously going to be available through that Kickstarter. So yeah, we are a small independent role-playing games company, and we like to try and do everything ourselves, rather than give over 5 or 10% to another system which just adds another 5 weeks onto the process and takes our money. We want to try and deal with it all. I design and create it all. My wife does we call her the logistics manager. And we have done this for quite a few years now, and we have good stocks of card, and we try and make sure everything's wrapped. Rarely does anything get damaged. We get like maybe 2 or 3 in 1,000 packages, and that's just inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. The postal service are brutal with packages, but we're usually pretty good. So I hope that answered you. I just wondered if the soft cover works would have been more practical. Well, yes, Blaine, they are more practical. You've got a bit more give with them. They're lighter because it hasn't got the cover on the front. You can just flip it much more easily. The reason I went for this spine like this was because I wanted it to flick. I wanted it to be something that you could just open and flick quickly to a page. Bang. And you read it. So I recommend these covers, but there's absolutely no reason why you can't play with the hardback. So it's kind of considered for both. Both are practical. I suspect the foe will be just like the hardback in the sense you could play with that, but the foe is like also considered to be collectible. You know, there's going to be a number of these with this lovely finish. So yeah, and so you can do a late pledge for the paperbacks as well. We'll get that straight out to you. I have a soft cover version and it opens the same way. Toby just demonstrated it using. It isn't going to stay open without you holding it open. Yes, and that is exactly what we want, really. We want something that you reference. You can read the rules, and then they can't just flips open a page. You hold it and read it, and then you put it away, and it's done. There's nothing else that really goes with it. Hardback have altogether, yes. So that is another key thing. So we separated these 2 books out. So the core rules is the core rules, and the Tables Codex can be used separately with the layers, for example, and any other things that come. Over the next month, I'm going to put together a guide to writing your own Tables Codex. This is really important to me. When I created this game, I wanted to be able to create something whereby people could create their own products for the game, their own dungeons, their own treasures, write their own tables, put them into a book, and then under an open gaming license, which I've got to set up still, they can then publish those on DriveThruRPG. And that then, for me, how cool would that be if my game take the core rules, someone else's codex, that they've created, and I can then play another dungeon that I've never, because I wrote all this. I know it. I'd love to be able to play another dungeon and explore other spaces that people have created using the same system that I have used here. So I'm looking forward to be able to do that. And that's a little bit further down the line, but we will facilitate that. We will encourage that. Brian Super excited to get my pledge. Of course, I got the paperback and hardback plus expansions. Been playing with the PDFs, but will be excited when the physical copies ship. Thanks for the great game. Loving it so far. Well, Brian, thank you. That's really good that you're enjoying your experiences. Yeah. Well, shipping on the 6th of September. So we're getting back the 5th. Hopefully everything going to plan, and then we'll be shipping them out ASAP. We'll be getting those out to everybody. So we're very excited about that, and everybody's been very patient. We try and be as transparent as possible, and try and answer all the questions on the forums, on the Facebook page. Facebook page has been amazing. We've got over 1,000 people there now sharing stuff, and it's been wonderful to see them arriving at different locations, pictures people are taking, which is really cool. Brilliant stuff. Right, so I think we're just about done there. It's been good. It's been another over 2 hours, so that's kind of flown by. Don't forget, look at the Facebook page, go to our website, drgames.co.uk. If you've got any logistical things, you can always email jo@drgames.co.uk. She will get back to you on that. She's hot on stuff like that. She's generally very hot. I think you've run a great Kickstarter campaign, have been super open and communicative. I've never had any questions about where things are. There you go. Thank you, Brian. Cheers. I'm going to want to quote some people in the next Kickstarter, so I'll be looking for quotes and asking people if I can use things that they've written and stuff like that, so keep an eye out for that. Brilliant. Okay, well guys, thanks for that. Don't forget, if you're not subbed already, I'm going to say it, it'd be awesome if you could. And if you haven't clicked that little bell icon to get the alert for when I go live, now is the time. There's also the join option where you can become a member in the Adventurers Hall for the YouTube channel. Guys, I will catch up with you very soon. Keep your eyes on Kickstarter and the Facebook page, and DR Games at GamesDRM at Twitter or X. Alright guys, take care. I will catch up with you very soon. You have been totally awesome. Make sure you watch Scott's videos, Ithacus Bane, look it up on YouTube, and I will see you very soon. Thanks guys, take care, you are awesome.